Good evening, and welcome to our Benicia City Council and Mayoral Candidates Forum. My name is Gail Vaughn, past president of the local League of Women Voters and the coordinator of this event. Our co-sponsors for this forum are Benicia Vallejo American Association of University Women and Carquinez Village. Niles, I think it goes to you.
Hello, my name is Niles Meadows, and I'll be your moderator for this forum, which I guess is co-sponsored by League of Women Voters, the Benicia Vallejo American Association of University Women, and the Carquinez Village. I'd like to welcome the mayoral candidates who are with us this evening. Start my video. Okay. Sorry about that. Christina Strawbridge, Steve Young, and Jason Diabates. Is that correct, Jason? All verified candidates were invited and are here this evening. We appreciate their taking the time to appear on this forum. This event is a forum, not a debate. The difference is that in a forum, each candidate will be asked the same questions. They will not speak to each other, but rather they will speak to you, the audience. We have asked the candidates not to refer to one another, and we ask they not mention endorsements or any particular affiliations, but to focus on what they will bring to the position of mayor. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for their opening statements, 1.5 minutes to answer the questions, and 3 minutes for their closing statements. Following the prepared questions, we will ask questions submitted by our YouTube audience via the YouTube chat box. For those questions, candidates will have 1 minute per question. The order in which the candidates will make their opening statements has been decided by the League and follows the order in which they are listed on the ballot. After their opening statements, they will be given the questions in an alternating order. At the conclusion of the question and answer section, candidates will make closing statements in reverse order. We've asked them to give you, the audience, a way to contact them should you have further questions. And we'll begin the opening statements with, nope, wrong list, excuse me, with Christina Strawbridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for having this and putting it on for the candidates. My name is Christina Strawbridge, and I'm running for mayor of Benicia. I'm running on proven leadership of 35 years in Benicia. Compassion, collaboration, and cooperation are is my mission. I am formally denouncing the negative campaigning that has been done on behalf of my campaign. I firmly believe that it does not work in Benicia. I don't need it. I'm running on a record that has spanned 4 decades as a business owner, Benicia Main Street president and event coordinator, economic development chair, tourism, state parks, Southern Pacific Depot, 7 years on the city council. I am running a positive campaign capturing the values of Benicia. I produced 2 commercials airing on selected by in a local market. I've put up over 300 signs and 33 road signs. I've not really walked all the neighborhoods, but dropping over 5,000 brochures. It's been done by volunteers, my friends, and my husband of almost 49 years. Sending out 1 mailer, and that reinforces my message of it's time. I don't need phone calls being made on behalf that can't pronounce my name, or worse, our town's name, or ads that have unflattering pictures of my opponent. What I do need is civility, and I'm asking my opponent to disavow the personal attacks that have been directed at me, my family, my business, and my work on behalf of the nonprofits here in town. These attacks have been going on since I announced back in January. We as candidates signed a voluntary code of ethics in order to make our elections clean. I've been called illegitimate, incompetent, and without proof or reference to a Form 460. I've never taken money from Valero, Sino, and Amports. I've been called unfit for council and corruption in reference to Benicia Magazine. So with that, I'm hoping my opponent doesn't need any.
That's time, Christina.
Okay, and run on his record. Thanks.
Next will be Mr. I'm sorry, I got a little bit turned. Mr. Diavatis, is that the correct pronunciation?
It is. You did a great job. Jason
Thank you.
Diavatis. Hi, I'd first like to thank you for the League of Women Voters, the AAUW and Carquinez Village, and all of your volunteers and staff to make this happen tonight. I know it's a lot of work, so thank you for hosting this event this evening. I think it gives our community a great opportunity to hear from each one of us. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Jason Diavatis. I was born and raised here in Benicia. I attended Mary Farmer Elementary School, Benicia Middle School, and I graduated from Benicia High School, although some of my teachers may say barely. That may not be wrong. I started my first business just after graduating from Benicia High School, and I've owned and operated businesses in Benicia for over 28 years. I've been very involved with the community for that whole time. I'm running for mayor of Benicia because there are major issues that have not been solved. We talk about it year in, year out, every campaign season. As mayor, I will focus on the local issues that we can solve together for the benefit of all of us and not let the national politics divide us. Key issues that we always hear about are reducing the water and sewer rates, which have more than doubled since 2016, prioritize the repair and improvement of our deteriorating roads, keep Benicia safe by investing in training and retention of our great community peace officers, improving access to our city council meetings with live streaming on social media, just like we're doing tonight. I've been trying for over a year lobbying the city council and the city staff to share these meetings on social media. And so far, they don't want to do it. Of course, there are many other important civic matters to address, such as expanding public art, the Benicia tourism, better transparency, supporting our community events, budget management, economic development, which is a big thing to me as a business owner. And most importantly, my desire is to provide a mayorship that will be readily accessible to you. I want to listen and act on your concerns so we can work together to solve the needs of our wonderful city by the Strait.
Time's up. Thank you, sir. And last, Mr. I'm sorry, I'm getting just Mr. Young.
Thank you. And I want to thank also the League and the AAUW Carquinez Village. I think this is a great opportunity for people to tune in and see us and compare us. A little bit about myself. I spent my career in local government. I spent 30 years there, primarily in the fields of affordable housing and redevelopment and community development. My last job, I retired from Sacramento as the Director of Community Development, where part of my responsibilities included the redevelopment of two closed Air Force bases, McClellan Air Force Base and Mather Air Force Bases. I retired in 2008. I moved with my family to Costa Rica, where we lived for 4 years. The reason we did that was to primarily give my daughter the experience of growing up and living in a different culture. And so we were there for 4 years. She went through high school there. When she graduated and came back to the US to go to college, we decided that we were a little bit far away. We didn't really want to, we shifted gears. We were going to stay in Costa Rica. After 4 years, we had sort of had enough and we wanted to come back. So we did. We settled in Benicia. I got appointed to the Planning Commission soon after I got here. One of the first things that was on the docket was the Valero Crude by Rail project. I did a lot of research on that project. I ultimately decided it was too dangerous for the community. I advocated against it. I voted against it. Ultimately, the Planning Commission voted unanimously against it. That was, I think, a surprise to the community, but it was the right decision. The City Council ultimately affirmed that decision. It might explain why Valero has decided that I'm not worthy of being elected mayor at this point, but they can speak for themselves. And since then, I was elected in 2016, and I'll be happy to talk about some of those things when I get a chance. Thanks. Are we frozen?
Niles? Can you ask the next question?
Sorry about that, folks. I was
Nope,
well
you can
into it. In Benicia, the mayor is responsible for overseeing the various departments, police, fire, public works, etc., and working with county, regional, and state entities for the betterment of the city. How do you plan to address the financial and health effects of COVID-19 on our community? And the first question that goes to Ms. Strawbridge.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. First of all, the mayor and the city council hire a city manager and a city attorney. They run the city. So we're a full service city, and they run the departments and the directors of those departments. We have done some incredible things in response to COVID. We have created a business task force that I joined Elizabeth Patterson on to make sure that our business community were talking to each other and responding to COVID. From that, we have been able to develop a boost program that has given nearly $500,000 to our businesses. And it's more than any city in Solano County. So I'm very proud of that. I'm also proud of the fact that those meetings has also helped in Ponder Environmental, Valero, and a number of other businesses that did a grant program on their own, business to business, and awarded $250,000 to our businesses that were really in need during COVID. We've also funded the FRC, the Family Resource Center, helping our people that have been laid off and in need of help with their rent and food and utilities. So we are on it, and I'm excited about what we are doing. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Strawbridge. Next is Mr. Diotis.
Can you go ahead and repeat that? I just want to make sure I have the right question.
Sure. How do you plan to address the financial and health effects of COVID-19 on our community?
So I'll tell you, as a business owner myself in this town, we're all struggling. The city has definitely done some things. I just think it could go further. One of the number one things that is missing is communication with the stakeholders. So helping the business community is only part of it. I think there are a lot of people in our community that are suffering financially from this, but they're also so suffering emotionally from this. COVID has been a nightmare for all of us. So some of the main things I think that we can allow our businesses to do the innovation. You look at businesses like Sailor Jack's, they went out, they created the windscreens along the water, which I thought was genius. Vinticello's created their parklet out there, which was an idea that actually started with Chief Upson and myself a few years ago before we did the sidewalk dining ordinance. So there are definitely ways we can let the businesses innovate the solutions. The city could support those, but ultimately it's going to be a partnership between the city and the businesses, communicate with the residents as well, so we can work on the solutions.
Thank you. And let's see, next is Mr. Young.
So I think the city has been a little late to the game. It was slow to respond to COVID, frankly. Early on in March, I was down talking to restaurant owners, and that's how I first got to know Jason, actually. And we talked about a program that we called Downtown Dollars, which would have allowed for certificates of $100 given to residents who'd been affected by the virus in terms of being furloughed or laid off or had their hours cut. Those certificates could then be used at a local restaurant or small business. It seemed like a simple way to do some quick economic stimulus and show that the city was committed early on. Jason supported it, as did the Union Hotel, as did the First Street Cafe. But when we brought it to the council on March 26th, it was turned down. And Tom Campbell was the only one who supported me on that idea. And he was strongly in favor of it. But the only explanation I got at the time was that it was not well thought out. Well, the city of Martinez decided that it was well thought out, and they adopted the exact same program and they're running it right now. I think it was a good idea then. It's a good idea now as we move into the colder weather and people are not going to be dining out, perhaps, if we're allowed to get back inside the restaurants. I think this is the kind of program that would have direct benefit to both citizens and businesses downtown. And I hope that later to be talking a little bit about more of what we can do to help our residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question is to Mr. Diabates. How do you see the city working with the Benicia Unified School District on issues of health and safety of our city's children?
I love that question. As a product of our city schools here in Benicia, I think that the relationship between the city of Benicia and the Benicia Unified School District is important. I know that there's already a great communication between them. I recently was talking to Dr. Young, who I respect greatly. I think he's got a very hard job, especially right now, balancing the needs between the schools, the teachers, the students. But ultimately, I think that relationships with the city involve the school resource officer. Having the school resource officer within our schools is absolutely terrific. I think that working with the teachers to get safely back to school, get our students back in classrooms so that our parents can go back to work and resume some sense of normalcy in their own lives is really key. So ultimately, I think that working together between the city and the school district is really key. As you know, that the city doesn't dictate anything to the school district, but we can absolutely coordinate efforts. We have different facilities available between the school district and the city of Benicia that could be utilized. But ultimately, just being there to support our schools, I think it's really, really important. But that school resource officer within our schools, I think is key. And I thought it was terrific while I was there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Young.
So Jason's right, the school resource officers are important. Our relationship with the school district is important. And there are ways that we can help some of the parents who are struggling with the fact that their kids are still stuck at home and trying to get educated over Zoom. One of the concerns that has been expressed is that one of the digital divide, that there are people in our community who don't necessarily have good internet access. The school district has come forward and offered Chromebooks, one per family, but there's often more than one kid in a family, and one Chromebook isn't able to be shared and have everybody go to school at the same time. So I think one thing the city could do is, with some of our surplus funds that we have right now, offer up extra Chromebooks for families in need who are able or needing additional assistance in the area of internet access. And that could also include subsidizing some of their costs for internet costs through Comcast. I also believe that kids, I'm concerned, I've heard from a lot of parents that they're concerned about the mental health of their kids, that their kids are not able to go out and play, they're not able to do sports, they're not able to go to the playground until very recently. And there is a need to try to normalize as best we can. So I think the challenge for both the school district and the city and the community is, how can we adapt and try to get to some level of normalcy while respecting the fact that the virus is still there. We don't know how long it's going to last, and we need to be cognizant of that. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Ms. Strawbridge.
Yes, thanks. Well, I'm very, very proud of our schools and our school district. We have one of the best in the state. And it's the reason why people come here, and why a lot of our people that grow up want to come back and raise their kids here. One of the things I did when I got reelected in 2018 was to state the liaison between the city council and school district trustees. Councilmember Young and I serve on that as appointed by the mayor. And it's been very, very important in solidifying our relationship. We can share information. We get a lot more information from city departments and that as to how we can help the school district. One of the things that I have participated in is Benicia Reads. It is to help our parents, as we're just talking about, be able to understand the importance of reading to their child, and also developing stronger relationships between the schools and our parents. The other thing I sit on is Mary Farmer, Safe Routes to School. Very important that we make sure that our kids can walk to school safely, ride their bikes, and another area that we're seeing development now on 7th Street and Military, and also the crosswalk that's being put in. So it's invaluable for us to continue that strong relationship. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next question will go to Mr. Young. What steps will you take to enhance the relationship between the police department and our diverse communities?
Thank you. That's a great question. It's obviously been something that we've been talking about for a while. I think the police chief, now the acting city manager, had done a great job in terms of shifting the culture in the police department. But I think there is still a ways to go. One of the things that when I've met with some of the members of the African American community is a story that one guy told me that he has been stopped on more than one occasion by Benicia police. And the first question that is asked of him is, do you have any warrants? Well, I would expect that nobody up here, no white people, have been stopped by the police and have that be the first question asked. I think that exhibits a certain amount of implicit bias and work that still needs to happen. So I think we need to recognize that. I have suggested that the body cameras that the council authorized a while ago, we ought to engage them for every traffic stop. And we should also record the race of every person that we stop, so that we know that we are not inherently biased and discriminating in how we are interacting with the community. Clearly, there is not enough diversity in our workforce or in our police department. We do not represent on a proportionate basis the population that we serve. And I think that's what we've got to work on. Thanks.
Thanks. Next is Ms. Strawbridge.
Well, next to our schools, our police department is also, as we call it, the best police department in the world. A lot of that has been the culture that Chief Upson, now Eric Upson, our interim city manager, has developed through the years. There is community policing. And what Eric has always said is that he has 28,000 people on his police force. We have over 12 neighborhood watches, groups all throughout our city that help our police department in communicating within their neighborhoods and to each other. This is essential moving forward. And I will say that we had an opportunity last year to district vote, to be able to encourage people from all different aspects, all different ethnicities to participate by districts. And I was the only one that voted for that. So we have had opportunity. We are going to have more opportunities because of our interaction with Black Lives Matter, Benicia Black Lives Matter, and looking at how we can diversify through education, through how we hire, how we recruit, and how we encourage people to want to serve in different capacities. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Diabates.
So I love our police department. Growing up in this town, it's changed a lot. It used to be that if you came into Benicia and you were from outside of Benicia, you were automatically getting pulled over. And that was just about everybody. So I certainly had friends that, would get pulled over just because they were clearly not from Benicia. Honestly, it didn't matter what color they were. So I really support our Chief Upson, who is now our city manager, acting interim, who is fantastic. The things that he's done already, I don't feel that we had a systemic problem with our police department. I think that there were probably in the past some officers that maybe stepped over the line. I think that everybody has learned. I think they've grown. I think that they've changed with the times. But I'd also like to say the body cameras are great. I think the interactions that I'm aware of have all been professional. And I would be open to looking into any allegations of any other problems. But really quick, in probably 1999, I was asked by the city council at the time to create a youth and police picnic, which is something that we should bring back. It will help the interaction between our students, our young people in town, and our police officers. So bringing back the youth and police picnic would be a great way to help our community and our police department to break the ice, which was in fact the name of the picnic back in those days.
Very good, thank you. Next question goes to Ms. Strawbridge, and it is, do you currently consider yourself an ally to communities of color and LGBTQ plus communities? What steps will you take to ensure equal representation for all?
Well, thanks for that question. It's pretty personal to me. I have 2 gay sons that I am so proud of, and all of the life lessons they've already taught me. So in a lot of ways, I feel like, you know, what's the problem? But there is still issues. There's many things that maybe are going to be challenged moving forward with gay marriage, the whole concept of the legality, the equality. And we've just lost a great champion in Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and her work in equality. So we have done some things. We've made some great moves. We fly the rainbow flag, the LGBTQ flag now in June. We also hosted an event in our city park because the club was not able to use another city's park facility. So our arms and hands and everything is open to diversity in our town. That's what makes us incredibly special. And we need to capitalize on the talents and the people that want to be involved. So more to come with that. And I'm very proud and excited about the future.
Thank you. Mr. Diovatis.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, as a restaurant owner, I host routinely a very diverse list of guests. So yeah, I would say I absolutely am an advocate for everybody. And honestly, I don't really care what your sexual preference or your color is. So for me, I think that the best thing that we can do is keep being kind to each other. I don't think that it really matters, honestly, how somebody feels about anything. But these days, we also have issues on political divide. So for me, it's really important to be kind to everybody. I grew up in theater, so you know, my joke has often been I had gay friends before it became popular. You know, my father was a very, very big person in community theater. In fact, even directing shows here in Benicia for Benicia Old Town Theater Group many years ago. So for me, I honestly don't see it. I don't have any bias on anybody except for their personality. So if you're a kind person, you're a nice person, that's all that I really care about. And I really hope that the community as a whole can fully embrace that. I do think that Benicia is probably one of the friendliest places I've ever been in the whole world. And I like to think that in our community, I'm not going to minimize it and say we don't have any negative interactions, but I'd like to say we probably have the fewest negative interactions of any community I've ever seen.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Yes, thanks. I certainly consider myself to be an ally of the gay and lesbian community. It's the groups that I work with routinely. I don't feel that there's a lot of animus towards gay people in Benicia. I think there's more that we can do, but I think we've made great strides in that direction, and that in general, people feel comfortable here. When it comes to diversity for minorities, I think it's a little bit of a different situation. We have not necessarily matched our rhetoric of being totally inclusive. The community is 70% white and 5% Black and 10% Asian and 10% Latino. But when you look at the city workforce, it's much whiter than that. When you look at our boards and commissions, it's much whiter than that. And I don't think that's a deliberate thing, but it is a fact. And in order to change that balance, we're going to have to be more aggressive in our outreach, in our recruitment for not only city employees, but also city boards and commissions. Because it's the city boards and commissions that are the ramp to allow people to move up to elected office. And I think that we have seen a whole bunch of very articulate young people of color that are exercising their interests and demands to be, for us to become more inclusive, and we should be listening to those requests.
All right, thank you. And next is Mr. Devates. You will start question 5. How do you foresee the city improving its financial situation and maintaining its infrastructure?
So I think it's really key that we diversify our revenue base. And I know that during the candidates for council, that was a big topic. We have key city assets that we need to properly utilize. One of the things I've been talking about a lot lately is the use of our 1902 train depot. It was put there in 1902, built originally in Banta, California. I think we're underutilizing it. I think that there are ways that we can monetize that, right? So we can use private investments, create a bar and restaurant there is the idea that I've been pushing, but I'm open to anybody else's idea that could generate some great revenue. And the city as a landlord would generate $400,000, $500,000 a year, potentially just in the lease rate. So I think that would be a key. Plus, that would help to build up the economic footprint of our waterfront. We barely utilize our historic downtown waterfront. It'd be really nice to see that we build that up. The Sino property, the 526-acre development, in 2018, in the last campaign season, everybody was talking about it. Nobody talked about it since. Every year, every cycle, campaign cycle, we talk about the Sino property, but we've never done anything about it after that. So I'm kind of tired of all the talk. I'd like to see us actually focus and start the communication. We haven't been willing to talk to them as a city. So we need to do those type of things. So there's a lot more. That's a huge topic for me. We could talk about that for an hour by itself.
Thank you. Mr. Young.
Yeah, I don't know that 90 seconds is enough to talk about both infrastructure and finance. So let me talk about the finance side. And maybe we can get back to the infrastructure later. Clearly, we do need to diversify our economic base. We are too reliant on Valero and the companies that service Valero. They are an important player for sure, but they don't provide sales tax directly. Their main contribution is property tax in terms of contributions to the city finances. So I think we have to be open to changes in terms of growth and encouraging growth. And there are two ways we can do it. One is to talk about expanding the size of downtown, perhaps adding, changing our zoning and our downtown plan to allow places that are now residentially zoned to allow for commercial development. And that would serve two things, not only to bring in commercial uses, but also the people who live in these houses near downtown that are becoming, in some cases, tired of the noise and the traffic. They're looking for an opportunity to get out. This might give them that opportunity and allow for more development. Jason mentioned the Sino property. The Sino actually approached me and I met with them a while ago about this. I talked about my vision for the property. I don't know that I'm down to 7 seconds, so maybe I can get back to it later. But I think that's clearly the place that we have to look at for extended growth opportunities.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Strawbridge.
Could you repeat the question again?
Sure. How do you foresee the city improving its financial situation and maintaining its infrastructure?
Council has already made some changes as far as doing some investments, especially with our roads. We have now put nearly $11 million into our roads, and that is going to make a big difference in infrastructure improvements. A lot of these roads are a gateway into our town, and people are really expecting to see some improvements there. We need to become open for business town. And for too long, we have not been open for business. We put businesses through a bunch of different rigmaroles as far as permitting and not getting communication. So we are investing more in our community development department. We are making some changes in our finance department to bring those departments up to speed, that we now become the place you want to come and do business. I have had a store now for 15 years. I previously had a store back in the late 80s and early 90s. And I know what it's like to have a business in a small town. So we need to encourage entrepreneurship. It's been exciting to see new businesses coming, and we need to build on that. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We have a question from the audience, which goes to Mr. Young. I got it here. CalPERS has not hit their 7% return goal. What are your plans for paying future pension and retirement deficits, as well as developing a plan to pay the current year's debt?
Well, pensions are probably one of the biggest looming problems that the city faces. And we have established a pension reserve fund. We are going to add another $2 million to it. We decided just the other night. But our obligations are significant. What people need to understand is that our pension obligations are not particularly different than any other city or counties. The deals that the previous councils made to allow for enhanced benefits for employees are great for employees, whether it's coming home to roost, and we have significant challenges. But we cannot just say we're going to not pay those bills. We are obligations. And so the fix has to actually happen at the state level and through state court actions, because Vallejo and the county and every other entity has the same problem, and it's going to take a massive fix on a much bigger basis than just Benicia.
Thank you. Ms. Strawbridge, would you like me to reread the question?
I think I get it. It's not an easy answer to a not very easy question. As Mr. Young said, we're along with other cities throughout California struggling with this. The advantage that Benicia has is we have been making some substantial investments in our pension funds. We are in much better shape than other cities, but we are also going to need to rely on the state and our assembly member, our senator, state senator, to help us with this transition. It could very well disrupt our complete budget if it comes due like tomorrow. Luckily, it doesn't. So we need to be creative, and we need to look at all of our options, but we are going to need the help from the state in order to address this.
Thank you. Mr. Devates.
So when I hear the comment that we have surplus funds, this is what makes me nervous. We don't, in fact, have surplus funds. We may have extra funds in one account, but clearly we have huge unfunded pension liability. So it's a responsibility. I'm not looking to anybody to save us from it, but ourselves. I believe in 2013, there were major changes done to how we fund our employees, how employees are paid and compensated. So ultimately, it's an obligation. We can't just shrug off that responsibility. We've got to keep funding our pension reserve fund. We need to realize that we do not, in fact, have surplus funds. These are funds that really we need to build up as much money as we can so that we can cover these obligations, but also keep our city running without cutting back services and hopefully without raising any more fees.
Thank you. Thank you. And another question from the audience, which will go to Ms. Strawbridge first. Last year, a zoning ordinance was passed 3-2 by the current council that prohibits future retail cannabis businesses from locations within Benicia, except for the industrial park. If Measure D results indicate that Benicia voters want additional retail cannabis business in Benicia, would you agree to begin a two-step process to change the restrictive zoning?
Okay, thank you for that question. Many of you know where I've stood on dispensaries in our town. I don't think it's a good fit. However, we have one that's going to be opening pretty soon on N Street. It is in a commercial building, but unfortunately it's in a neighborhood of families. So there are a lot of concerns that I have along with the residents in that area on the impacts. We don't know financially what is this dispensary going to generate. We don't know what traffic mitigation, traffic impact is going to be, and also safety. So when this came up, the ballot measure, I was very vocal about the fact that I think it was premature. We need to see how this first and only dispensary performs before we to bring this before the voters. We owe that to our voters just to have them get that information. Thanks.
Thank you. And next is Mr. Devatis.
So when it comes to cannabis, I routinely talk to people within our community that are on both sides of it. So Measure D is advisory only. So it's just the city's way to go out and get input from the community. You know, I'm always willing to have a conversation. I'm not a big proponent of cannabis. I'm not a big opponent of cannabis. In fact, I think I'm poised really well to hear both sides of the topic. Because again, I have a lot of friends and I know a lot of people that are really evenly split on both sides of this issue. I do think that we need to maintain our buffer zones. I think we need to keep it out of our downtown, and I would not support putting it in any residential areas. Aside from that, let's have a conversation. I mean, listen, there is going to be some tax revenue to come from that. So there are some benefits from there. And aside from the fact that I do not support the youth using marijuana at all, an adult, you get to do what you want. This is America.
All right, thank you. Mr. Young.
So when Prop 64 was on the ballot in 2016, it passed by 63% in Benicia. And a lot of people thought that meant we were going to get dispensaries. What the law said is that cities had the right to decide whether or not to have dispensaries. So we went through a long 2-year process of coming up with some very strict rules to allow businesses. We allowed up to 2 businesses at that time to apply, and they each paid $20,000 to apply. And the city was very slow in processing their application. And in the middle of, while it was still going on and we had 9 applicants, there was a new council elected and they decided that they didn't like the existing thing. They changed the rules in the middle of the game, which is inherently unfair to the businesses who had followed all the rules. It was only when we threatened with a lawsuit that we came back with this compromise to allow one, but put these buffers in to never allow another. I made a pledge on Measure D that if the voters said that they didn't want additional dispensaries, even though I supported them, I would adhere to the will of the voters. And I hope all council members would do the same.
Thank you. So I don't think this one's going to take a minute, but another one from the audience, first to Mr. Devatis. Will you hold regular office hours so residents can talk with you?
Great question. Yes, I would absolutely support that. I will do that. I do it now, as a matter of fact. I'm down here at my restaurant on First Street in our downtown every day. I typically take my coffee in the late morning around 11 a.m. and I get to talk to people as they walk by. I get to talk to tourists. I get to talk to our local residents, and it's fascinating. And I hear lots of different things. So I don't feel like I'm in an echo chamber when I get to talk to many community members and hear their input. So it's we get into some great conversations. Some of them are challenging for me, but I love to listen to our community. So yeah, I would absolutely hold regular office hours, but I'm doing it right now. So you can stop by downtown pretty much any day around 11 a.m. and talk to me. Plus, I like to go up to the city park on Saturdays. So lately I've been doing a lot of that. I missed last Saturday, but I'll be there this Saturday. Happy to talk to our community anytime.
All right, thank you. Next is Mr. Young.
Yes, certainly I would continue office hours. I would do more than just the 1 hour a day, 1 hour a week that the current mayor is doing. There is an office for the mayor. If I'm elected, my wife will be happy to have me out of the house and in another room. And I would intend to work in that office on a regular basis. So I would be available much more often. The other thing I want to do, though, is offer up to employees to come talk to me and give me their ideas on how the city programs could be improved, either from an efficiency point of view or a reduction in cost perspective. I think our employees are really good. I think they understand what's going on, and they have a perhaps better understanding of how the city could operate more efficiently than perhaps even directors or certainly council members. So I would look for that kind of interaction on a regular basis.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Strawbridge.
Yeah, thanks. So I think we need to think even bigger. I would like to see that the mayor has their own Facebook page, information about what things are happening, having our residents be able to contact through social media or also through our emails. I think it's great to be able to meet with our residents, but oftentimes it's doesn't work within their schedule. I think right now it's from 6 to 7 on Mondays. So I think that the more access we have to our residents, the better. I too, like Mr. Diavatis, have a store on First Street. And just yesterday, I had a gentleman come by and say, "Which one of you is Christina?" So found out he's a Midwesterner, has lived here a number of years. And it was really great to just be able to talk to him about what his feelings are and what things he's looking forward for in the future. So yeah, the more communication, the better.
All right, thank you. And it looks like this will be our last question. First to Mr. Young. What do you know about how the police handled DACA residents and other immigrants?
Well, I know that the council had a policy that we passed a while ago that we would not be cooperating with ICE and we would not be turning immigrants over who had been picked up for minor violations. I'm sure that's still in effect. I think that is the case. I'm not aware of concerns, frankly, of DACA kids or immigrants in general who have had interactions with the police that has turned into any problem with immigration. And I would continue to hope that that would be the case.
All right, thank you. And next to Ms. Strawbridge.
Yeah, I'm unaware of any issues. I know that we did put forward a proclamation, a resolution about being, open to DACA. I feel like, there's so much legislation now, like ping pong going back and forth. But again, this gets back to the culture that our police department has developed, and it's only being strengthened with our interim city manager.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Diavatis.
So I'm going to echo exactly what I just heard from Christina and from Steve. I'm not aware that we have any issues with this in our community. However, that being said, I will tell you personally, I like law enforcement. So if we have violent criminals, I don't particularly care what their status is. I would want them handed over, and I want them out of our community. We don't need any more felons or criminals hanging out in our community, violent criminals especially, hanging out within our community. I want to keep our town safe.
All right, thank you. Well, that I think concludes our question for this evening. And I want to thank you all for a very interesting forum. Back to you, Gail.
Yeah. Niles, you have to let me off video. Or Susan. Uh-oh. Well, I can't start the video because the host has stopped it. Just a minute, please. So you
I don't
won't.
think I have that option. Susan must control.
Okay. So, yep. Okay. So, I'll just be doing it without you seeing my lips move. How about that? You can hear me all?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, would like to thank, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, the AAUW. Wait, now I've got it. Okay, here we are. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters, the AAUW in Carquinez Village, I would like to thank all the candidates for making time to come here tonight. Running for office is difficult, and we admire anyone who is willing to run and serve their community by being an elected official.
Gail, excuse me a sec. You know what? I think I skipped over closing.
Closing. Yep, thank you. That's
Sorry
my
about
Ally
that.
showing me 3 fingers. Okay, all right.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Okay, so closing statements, and we're going to do those in the reverse order of the opening statements. And if I can get back to that part, I will tell you what that means. So first is Mr. Young.
Thank you. So I'd like to start where Christina started. And I appreciated the fact that she denounced the negative campaigning that's happening by Valero and the Working Families PAC. Of course, I'm the target of that, so it would be easy for me to denounce it as well. I haven't really said anything about it, but I have had supporters who have been very upset by the tenor and the nature of those ads. And it's not right that personal attacks are directed towards Christina. I don't believe that she had a role in those particular ads, because if she had, they would be better ads than they were. I don't think those ads are doing her any favors, frankly. They are not well done. They have a lot of falsehoods in them. But I don't believe she's corrupt. I don't believe that she has a role in this. And in a way, she is a victim of those ads as much as I am. Well, maybe not as much as I am, but in a different way. The other thing I want to say is some pledges I have taken as a candidate, not to take any corporate money, not to take any union money, to be open, to be transparent, to answer every question that is put to me, that I'm going to follow the will of the voters, as we talked about, having to do with Measure D, that I'll continue to be active on social media. I think it's important that the mayor be out there and be willing to engage with the community and act as a spokesman for what the city is trying to do and what some of the issues are. I've been really impressed by the community so much since this pandemic has started. I was active in forming a group called Benicia Strong, which was started out as a bunch of churches who were involved in social actions and feeding people. It included Northgate Church and St. Paul's and Heritage Presbyterian and Community Congregational. And then we added some other entities like Food is Free, Solano and Heather Perini, and they are doing some tremendous stuff. And when there is a need, people are stepping up. And it has been so inspiring to me to see this happen with the people in Benicia. I know this has been a divisive campaign. It's unfortunate, but it'll be over soon. And if I am elected, I understand that it's going to be necessary to try to pull people together. And mayors on their own cannot make things happen. You need to have 3 votes on the city council to accomplish anything. And I believe that I have the type of experience and temperament and understanding of the issues where I can bring people together and move this community forward. We have large challenges, but with a new city manager and a new city council, I think we can certainly make progress and make significant inroads into our challenges. So I want to thank the League for the opportunity, and I ask the viewers for your support on November 3rd. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Diabates.
So I want to also echo what Christina and Steve said. I want to thank everyone that has served our community on council. I'd also like to thank all of those that are running to serve our community on council, including the mayors, the mayor's race. As a Benicia business owner, I've always been close to the campaign process, but this is my first time entering the arena myself. It's very different. It's a very different perspective. It's a lot of work, and I truly appreciate the commitment made by all of the candidates. So in terms of negative campaigning, I've chosen to stay completely positive myself, and I will attack no one. I'm really happy for everybody that's willing to do it. So now that I'm running for office, I have even more appreciation for what they go through. I'd like to thank all the candidates for the willingness to serve our community. And I would encourage everybody else to show their appreciation as well. Growing up in Benicia was one of the best gifts from my parents. Benicia was recently ranked 17th safest city in California. With all that our community has gone through with COVID-19, we will have a lot of work and hard decisions ahead if we want to keep Benicia the fantastic little town that I grew up in. But we do have some smart development that we need to undertake. We have nearly an $8 million budget forecasted shortfall city revenues. So we don't have a surplus. And I really would like to see people stop talking about a surplus. we have some tough budgeting issues ahead, but there are a lot of opportunities for us to improve. The city of Benicia needs to implement a business and recruiting retention program that'll help our businesses stay in Benicia and recruit more great businesses, which will create jobs and add to our diverse revenue basis. We need to better utilize our key city assets, such as our downtown waterfront, improve our community events, making our downtown a draw for tourists and our community alike. We need to find ways to improve our road repairs, such as creating our own road repair crew and leasing our own road repair equipment. 46% of our roads are still in poor or failing conditions. We have a $30 million problem, but we only put about $1.2 million a year towards it. 27% of Measure C is all we're putting towards our roads. I'd like to see a cap put on Measure C for what can go to operating expenses. You know, and it's interesting, in 2018, we were talking about water and roads in 2018. What have we done over the last 2 years to improve that? Why are we still talking about the same problems? So clearly we need to reduce our water and sewer fees, and at the very least do something for our fixed income seniors. So if we can't do something, you know, for the community as a whole, I do believe we have an obligation, and I know this was also a campaign issue in 2018, which was never followed up on. So really, for our seniors, we've got to do something for them. So as mayor, I will vastly improve the way we communicate with our community.
Trade your time is up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Strawbridge.
Yes, thanks. Thank you all. Thank you for the League of Women Voters, the American Association University of Women, and the Carquinez Village for putting this forum on. We didn't have that many forums this time, and so it's very appreciative, and to have it early, because I believe our citizens are voting now. They are voting early. They want to make sure their vote counts. I would like to just respond to some of the things Jason said, in that we have put on over $9 million to roads. Now we just added another $2 million to roads. So we are investing in infrastructure. We are not going to be able to reduce water rates. We just had a report that shows the next 30 years that we're going to be $300 million in need of water, where water comes from, and how we develop it. The good news is we have an amazing Public Works Department, a great director in Will Turbo, and they are looking at innovation in how we can partner with the city of Vallejo and the county, Solano County, in helping us with some of these costs. So I believe that we have an amazing staff. They have and are looking at all opportunities within our city to keep us a full service city. And it's important because Councilmember Young has brought up our library and maybe regionalizing it with the county. This is really an important issue because it is the heart of our community. And the people of Benicia would not be happy if it was merged with the county, and it doesn't make dollar sense. So we need to continue these services. People have moved here because we're a safe city. We do not want to regionalize our fire and police because we want them when we need them. So we need to look at economic development. As I said, we need to look at business opportunities. As somebody that helped with Councilmember Young on cannabis out in the industrial park, we added many of the things that are important out there as far as delivery, micro businesses, and helped reduce the fees in order for us to be more competitive. That may be a great opportunity for us. So we need to be business friendly. We need to heal the divide within our community. It's gone way over the edge. And I'm hoping that my ability to bring people together like I have for the last 35 years, I'll be the person to do that. So I'm asking you to elect me as your next mayor of Benicia. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the candidates. It's been a great forum, and pass it back to Gail.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to read what I read already. I'll read the next part or say the next part. But I do want to thank you again, all the candidates, for coming and being here. And we'd like to ask the people who are watching, the audience, to, if you have additional questions or concerns, we ask you to reach out to the candidates directly. And I would like to also encourage you to use Voters Edge, the California League website that has nonpartisan information about the candidates, propositions, and measures. Go to votersedge.org and type in your street address and zip code to find your candidate choices. When you get there, you just click on the candidate's name or face, and their top 3 priorities, profession, will come up. There's a series of questions that the league has formulated that are similar to these that they've answered as well. So there's good information there if you go, and it's free. Okay, the recording of this forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters of Solano County's YouTube channel with the link on our website. The copyright for this forum belongs to the League of Women Voters of Solano County, which reserves all rights to the recording of this forum. No portion of the contents of this forum may be reproduced or otherwise used without prior written consent from the League of Women Voters. No portion of this recording may be used to promote one candidate or oppose another in any way. Additionally, no portion of this forum may be used to imply that the League of Women Voters endorses any candidate. If the recording of this forum is to be used, it must be used in its entirety. We felt strongly that we did not want the pandemic to prevent voters from learning about the candidates who are running for office. And so I thank you again for coming, and also for making the comment that you are wanting, all of you are wanting to unite our community. I appreciate that personally. Our virtual event is complicated and takes a great deal of time and effort to create, and there are many behind the scenes that make today's forum happen. We would like to thank Niles Metters, Julie Hartford, our Vice President, Sandy Curry, Craig Patterson, Rami Muth, Ali Desiderio, our timer, Barbara Hausman, our chat manager, and Susan Newhouse, our technical coordinator and president of Carquinez Village. We welcome your feedback and hope you will take a moment to leave a comment in the chat box on your YouTube. This information will help us know the aspects of the forum that worked well and where we can improve. Thank you for attending, and remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. Make a plan to vote on or before November 3rd. Thank you. Good night.